Alrighty, so gonna be picking up more or less where I was yesterday. The docket today is to continue on with how the mini games are actually going to work in game. Although I am going to make a bit of a change. Yesterday I realized I was kind of going off on a bit of a tangent trying to figure out how every single mini game was going to work with the panels on the door. And ultimately what I realized off stream is that I think that was just the wrong approach. I did a little prototyping in here in Sprite, just mocking up what the door might look like, or at least what the major components of it are. And there's really just no way that the panel idea was going to work. So what I am planning to do today... I just realized that's not working. Okay. 1 second. Automatic scene switcher apparently does not work entirely correctly. There you go. That'd help if you actually saw what I was looking at. I'll need to take a look at that off stream. So what I was trying to do yesterday was figure out how to fit every minigame as a panel that would pop out of the door. And I realized that the several different minigames that exist just aren't going to work that way. There's no way I'm going to get them all to fit on the door and be able to reuse the same panel for different minigame styles. It's just going to be way too difficult. So what I came up with off stream is that the door is going to be in two parts. This outer panel, which will split open whenever you pull the lever, and that will reveal like the door's inner workings, like a maintenance override. And that will be where the minigame is inside the door. And for all intents and purposes, it's just a wall behind the door. And I can swap that out every time the door closes and reopens. I can have a different minigame there. So I have full customization to make the inside of the door look however I want. I can have 4 screens. I can have 1 screen. It can be a shooting range, a cooktop, whatever I want the minigame to be. And then the way it's going to work is whenever you complete the minigame, the door is going to slam shut and then reopen. And that time, when it reopens, it will be opening as if you'll actually be able to see the tunnel behind it. So gameplay wise, I'm just going to remove the minigame panel that's behind it. And I think that's going to go a long ways towards simplifying the design of the door. I was playing around with some different ideas last night on panel lines and how exactly the door was going to open, but it occurred to me I don't even really need to do that at this stage. The only part that's important is this switch, because for gameplay reasons, the minigames need a start game button. If you don't, and this is something I faced with the demo, is I don't have a way to start some of the minigames. One like the platforming game, you have to just press the jump button to start it. And then the cooking minigame, you have to ring the bell. And the more I started thinking about it, most of the minigames are going to require a start button of some kind. So what I'm going to do is actually, whenever the door's default state will be closed like this, and this switch will be the start button. So if the minigame is timed, that's going to start the timer. So you pull the lever, the door opens, reveals the minigame, and if you run out of time, again, the door is just going to slam shut, probably sound an alarm. I'm thinking there's going to be a terminal up here or something, or maybe a warning light that goes off around it to indicate that it's locked until it's unlocked. And whenever it's unlocked, you'd pull the lever again to reopen it. So a bit of a departure from what I did in the prototype, but it's the easiest way I can think to give every minigame a start button that's consistent. It also works out well this way because I want there to be, or one of the things I want to prototype is a gadget system in the game where each player can carry like one gadget that will help you. And one of the ones I've thought of is a gadget that would allow you to override the door in a couple different ways. One gadget that would just hack the door and open it for you. And then another gadget that would change whatever minigame is in the door. And this makes it really easy if I don't have to worry about different panels or whatever, because I don't have to worry about spawning in a different door facade for different minigames. I can just have this one facade and you use the gadget on it and it just replaces whatever the minigame behind it is. So I'm not going to do really much more artwork wise on this. There are a couple things I wanted to point out, though, other than the Switch. So I mentioned yesterday that there's supposed to be a track on the ceiling for this little drone mannequin puppet thing that follows you around. And I've got that in the door as well. Kind of what I'm thinking is I'm going to cut out into the ceiling so that it's not sticking out so far into the play area. So that's what I've got modeled there. And just a rough idea of what the size of this thing might be. It probably is going to need to be bigger than that, but just roughing it out. And then a door for it to go through the door even if you haven't unlocked it. Then the other thing is, just for aesthetics, I'm thinking of having a panel at the bottom of the door that will fold flat once the door opens, just for aesthetics. So that's really all there is to say about that. So what I want to do first is go into Godot and start playing around with smaller screens and just trying to basically block out a bunch of the mini games into the level. And once I've got enough of them done that I feel confident that I can physically fit the mini games, and they'll be theoretically visible. Again, I'm not going to design them all right now. Then the thing I want to come to next is doing the actual art study, because that will prove to me that the idea of having the mini games in the level is possible. So then I can start the actual art study, where what I want to do is take one of the mini games and try to fully realize it. Go into Blender, whatever, model it, texture it, and see what it looks like. So I've got all my reference material for the game up, a bunch of the different movies and games that and all that. So we'll start that probably in the second half of the stream. But first things first, gonna pop over to Godot and we'll start work over here. And just get this a little bit better. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so what I'm gonna do first things first is we're gonna duplicate this, and actually probably duplicate it a couple different ways. I'm gonna do a new scene, and we will call this door panel. And I'm going to cut that CSG, paste it over here, and then I'm going to add another CSG box. And let me make sure okay, now that looks fine. So what I'm going to do is bring this up, and we'll say it's we'll do 2. Oop. There we go. Okay, and then all I need to do is set this to subtraction. Although I probably need to apply the door material. Yeah. Okay. So that gives me the panel for the door. So we'll save that. And we'll come back into the door. This will be the back plane for the mini game. So I'm actually going to probably make that, cut that and probably paste it into these. Let's see, that's 0.3 thick. So I need to move that back. 0.15. All right. So then in here, we'll do a new node. So we'll do a front panel, and then we'll bring in 2 of these door panels. Now this minigame offset, okay, a couple things I'm going to do here. One, I'm going to make this door panel a lot thinner. So we will do 0.1 on that. And I am actually going to offset it a bit. Something I like to do whenever I'm working on these models is... Oh, hey! How's it going? Storm Bum? Just working on some of the prototyping for the door at the moment. So, don't know if you watched any of the others, but what I realized from the last stream is that my plan to have all of the mini games or in screens and things I need for the mini games to unlock a door on the front of the door aren't going to work, or that idea is just not going to be possible. There's too many different types of screen and control that I'm going to need. So I'm shifting to the door is going to have a facade that opens up to reveal the mini games. So that's what we're working on here, is just prototyping this out. And then once I've kind of proven out that at least a few of the mini games are going to work this way, I'm going to switch over and actually do an art study where I fully try and create one of the mini games. So model it, texture it, just to make sure I've got the workflow down. And that will probably cover the art study, although I do need to figure out the lighting and whether or not I'm going to actually apply a PSX shader or just stick with low resolution. So let me offset this door panel here. It's what, 0.1, so we'll do other way, I think. Oh no, that's right. Okay, so I got that. Then in here, where did the panel go? Hide the mini games. Oh, that ain't right. Wait, did I offset this the wrong? I did. Okay. Back the other way. All right, there we go. So now that's on the right side, and I need to flip one of these the other way around. Is this at the top or the bottom? That's the bottom. All right, perfect. So now this needs to be offset again. That is way too far forward, which might be, yeah, see, these are, okay, that's right. That's all the way back. Yep, okay, so then this is what's wrong. Does that need to be positive? Yes, it does. Okay. And I'm going to also bring that back down. Oh, that's right. Yeah, because these are offsets. We'll do 0.25 there as well. That's not right. Why is that so far back? Yeah, it's just supposed to be 0. Ah, okay, yeah, that's the problem. All right. So then for these, what I'm going to do is just have a animation player loop it opening and closing just for this, so I can make sure that this looks right. And we will do a 3D position track on the top and bottom. And one for the bottom. All right. That should work. So then we'll do, I want this to be a fairly snappy animation. For gameplay reasons, I think the door needs to open very quickly. Otherwise, it's just going to frustrate players. So we'll See, this is the top one. We'll bring it up. I don't know, 1, see what that looks like. Yeah. And change that to cubic on both. Did I even put that at 0.4? Okay. And we'll do -1 there. Honestly, it could go a lot faster than that. We'll do 0.2. Yeah, good enough. At least for testing. Okay. So let's run that. And of course, this isn't going to... Oh, wait, you know what? Actually, it would help if I set this to run on start and loop. Okay. Let's do this about, I don't know, 5 seconds long. And then here at the end, I am going to add these back at their starting position. What the heck? Okay, that's a new one. Is that because I'm using cubic? I bet it is. Oh, you know what? These need to be actually 1 and -1. Okay, and then I'll add about, I don't know, 1 more second where I'll keep them shut. So, okay, yep, that looks fine. Okay, so now run that and need to go back into OBS, I imagine. Yep. There we go. All right. Is it gonna close? Oh, yep, there it goes. Okay. Okay, well, I need to fix the collisions, but all right. I like that. That's got a good look to it, I think. So that does give me most of the play area to work with, or most of the door. So then the next thing I want to tackle is the fact that the platformer minigame is not going to work with all 4 players on one screen. So I need to add 4 screens. So we will stop that and go back into Aseprite and edit this a bit. Let me see if I can find that. Yep, runner challenge. All right. So I'm going to do these, I think, as 32 by 32 screens. So all I need to do, actually, can I open the original? That's unfortunate. Did I not save the... Huh. Oh well, I didn't save the Aseprite file. Uh-oh. Okay. Well, what I'll do then is just edit this. So we'll grab that. I guess first things first. Come in here and delete these players. So this will actually let me use the same color. Why? What? Well, that's a new one. Why is that not working? Huh. That's not locked. Let me reopen that. That's interesting. Okay, now I can... Okay, that was weird. I've never had a sprite do that to me before. Okay. So then we'll grab that, bring that over. And bring... Just delete all of those. And let me see if I can adjust this. Not easily. Okay, so that does represent a little bit of a problem. So 32 by 32 isn't going to work with this art style, it looks like. Let me do 32 by 64. It's not exactly what I was hoping for, but... Then the other thing I was thinking about doing is making this thinner, actually, but... Well, we'll leave it the way it is for now, and we'll just draw in another one of these goofy players. I'll figure out what those are actually supposed to be later. Okay, so that looks pretty decent. Well, okay, this player does need to be a bit bigger, it looks like. Okay, that does help, and we'll actually bring them over a little bit. Okay, that should be good enough to start with. And I'm actually going to save this as a new file just in case. All right, back over into Godot. And we'll go to the runner minigame and change this to the new... Okay, that's much smaller already. And we'll shrink the size of the monitor. What is that, X? Okay, that looks fine. We'll just bring one over to about there, which looks like 0.75. We'll do 1.5 there. Oh, no. 0.5, 0.25 maybe? Okay. We'll do negative 0.25. And then duplicate it again to negative. Okay. Now let's see how that looks. And of course this is broken again. That is so strange that just toggling between two sources fixes that. Okay. Of course. All right. Well, you can definitely see it, although I think I see a problem again. Let me check, but I'm guessing this is, yeah, re-import that. Okay, that looks a lot better. So that VRAM compression definitely causes a lot of issues. These are definitely too high up though, and I'm still worried that they may not work that well. So one of the things I want to do I'm not sure all the players are even going to be able to fit in front of this door. I think I need to test that. So the size of the player is, where's that? Okay, 0.3. So let's come in here, and in this level, we'll just add a static body, and we'll just do this as a rectangle, or as a box, I think. And it will be 0.3 times 3, so for the other players, so 0.9. And they are 1.75 tall, I think. Or no, 1.45, I guess. Alright, so now let me bring this over. And bring that up. Alright. And now bring it over to the door. That can't be right. Is that radius? That was radius. Okay. Yeah, okay. So it's actually 0.6, 0.6, 0.6. So what? 1.8? Honestly, I don't even think I need to go into the level to see that's not going to work. How? Ah, yeah, because the tunnel is only too wide. Yeah, okay, so that's a problem. All right, well, that has me curious then. Let me save this and let me go back to the proof of concept, because now I'm wondering, was this... I didn't think that was a problem in the proof of concept. Oh, there it goes. Come on, load Godot. Ah, it is wider in here. Okay, so that's more like 2.5. How did I screw that up when I brought that over? I thought something looked weird. Okay, let me just create a mesh instance just to measure that. And we'll just do a box mesh, and no, it's wider than 2.5. Okay, yeah, it's 3 wide, which is what... All right, yeah, I remember measuring that. And so 0.6 times 4 would be 2.4. Yeah, so that it wasn't an issue in this prototype. So what did I screw up when I came over into the art study? Okay, so if we look at the outer cylinder has a radius of 2, which means it's 4 in diameter, and the inner one has 1.5, which means it's 3. Oh, okay, I see what happened. Yeah, all right. So let me... It's the collisions. I forget. So the actual tunnel in the other map is larger. It's probably like 4 or 5 on the inside, but I just shortened it with the collision volume, so that's why that is not working. Oh, and I also didn't factor in the actual width of this, which is 1. So that needs to be -2, really, I think. Yeah. Okay, that definitely explains some issues then. So I can get rid of this static body, I think. Okay, so then on this outer one, I'm going to make that radius 3. And then the inner one, I'm actually going to do 2. Yeah, that already looks a lot closer to the way it was in the other map. And I'm guessing that's broken again. Yep. Okay. So, yeah, and this actually looks a lot closer to the other one too. So now the door's the wrong size. Okay. So then maybe I will have more room on the door. All right. So I will come over to here and we'll fix that on the door panel. So that actually needs to be 2. And that probably needs to be 4. And we'll go a little bit wider, just to make sure there's not like a thin sliver of geometry hanging out there. Okay, that looks fine. Let me make sure this is right. Okay, yeah, that still looks fine. All right. So then that also needs to be 2, and this needs to be 2. And these monitors can be spaced out a lot more. I think I'm also going to get rid of the angle on them. Okay. Yeah, all right, that's a lot better. So then they need to be spaced out at least 0.6 away from each other, and they're only 0.5 at the moment. Okay. So that one, we'll start with this one here. Move that up to the top. Okay. So the middle one needs to be, we'll do 0.3. We'll bump that to 0.4. And we'll do this one to negative 0.4. So then this one will be negative 0.8, I guess. No, that's not right. I guess that would need to be negative 1.2. Yeah, all right. It might be too wide. We'll see. No, it's actually not. Okay, that's pretty good then. Okay, so if that works, then I just need to bring the doors, or bring these down. Okay. So I will come back into here, and all of these will bring down to 0. And I believe it's 0. They're going to be perfectly centered on the player's vision. Yep. Yeah, okay, I think they're a bit too small now, so I can probably make the screens bigger. So I could probably do 64 by 64. I'm thinking what I want to do for these is have like 4 computer terminals. But I did realize yesterday that, and this is really something I noticed in the POC as well, is that you can't just, having a separate jump button is distracting, and it's going to be worse in game because you actually have to aim at the button. In the POC it was a UI, and actually, so there's an interesting problem. If you look down, yeah, so you really do need to be looking at it. So I do want it to be a touch screen. Okay. I think this is fine. I like the idea of this being a computer terminal, though, that's maybe angled up a little bit, so maybe you are looking down, because it feels a little unnatural to be looking straight forward. I think having it be slightly lower and tilted up might make that make a little more sense. So we will try that. So actually, all of these, I'll do, what, 15 degrees positive? Yeah. And then the other thing I want to do is actually come back into Sprite real quick. And I'm going to experiment with making this 64 by 64. Or maybe 48 by 64. No, we'll just do 64 by 64. Okay, and grab that. And I really shouldn't be spending this much time on the art at the moment, but we'll do that. And then one thing I was thinking is it's going to be problematic if I don't have instructions. So I'm going to try putting some text in here. We'll just try it with sprites. We'll do 8. What is the... Okay. And we'll view the grid. Okay. I'll pop back over into Godot. And that's probably, yeah, that's broken now. So I need the monitor to be bigger. Which is unfortunate because that is not a model, that's a CSG. So it is not going to update everywhere. Cool. All right, so we'll do 0.35 in both directions. You know what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bring this out into a new scene. So we'll call this runner monitor. And I'm going to and I will go ahead and reset the rotation and all that as well. Okay, we'll just delete all those. Thankfully, I still remember what the numbers were. Okay, there we go. All right, so we've got that back. And all right, so now I need to come over to here. And in this new scene, couple things. One, let's bring this back a little bit more. Yeah, that looks fine. Okay. So then I need to bring all of these forward. So I'll just add a new node for that. And I'm going to reset the Z on all of these. And reset the rotation on them as well. Okay, there we go. All right, that looks pretty good. So we'll take a look at that, see how that's going. And OBS is broken again. Cool. All right. Okay. Well, other than the screens being too far out, what I'll probably do for that, because I do want there to be, I want to make a show of the minigame activating. So what I'll probably do is have whatever is behind the door animate out whenever it activates. So I'll just have, if these are computer terminals, they'll probably just push forward or something, or the screen will fold out. I could also put the screen a little further back too. I'd say this is pretty viewable, like that it doesn't look unreadable to me at all. I may yet change these may not be LCDs like the other one is. I want to keep the other one in LCD, but I might change these to be like a CGA color palette or something. But I think this gets the point across. I think that would work pretty well. So I'm pretty happy with that. I think there's not really a lot I would change here. I think there's enough visible on the screen. There's enough room for players to line up to play it. And I can put whatever other styling I want behind the door. So I think that will work. All right, so that covers that one. The next one's going to be kind of interesting because it is the cooking minigame. So we'll see how that might look. I should also check too before I actually get too far ahead. Let me see how this minigame looks. Yeah, that one's kind of interesting. I really don't know what I'm going to do with this one. Feedback on it has not been great. And I understand why, but I do want to keep something like this in the game, but I'm not 100% certain how I'm going to keep. I want to keep the humor of being asked to do a CAPTCHA when it's a life or death situation. But I'm not really certain how to pull that off in game to where it's not going to be cumbersome. Because the thing that occurs to me is, with this many buttons that close together, even if I space the buttons out, it's going to be problematic. Not to mention, it's going to look really weird having a keyboard that large. So all I can really think to do is change it to maybe be symbols, or maybe do like chemical names or something like that, something similar. Like maybe a made-up alphabet with fewer characters, like 16 characters or something like that. Or I could probably honestly just reduce it to... I thought about you doing hexadecimal, but I don't think that's going to really work, because you still run into problems with hexadecimal between like 8 and B and 1 and I, or not 1 and I, but you do still run into some problems there. Not to mention, it removes the ability to potentially spell much of anything interesting if I wanted to put an Easter egg in. But there's a couple things I don't like about this. One, the screen just feels really far away. Even though it's taking up a large chunk of the real estate, it just feels far away, which is weird. I don't get that with the other minigame. I think I'm going to table that one and say that it is technically possible, I think, to do it, but I still think it might get replaced with something else. So we'll table that. I don't know what that empty... Oh, yeah, actually, I do know what that empty scene was. Okay, so we'll do another scene, and this one will be the cooking minigame. So... this one, the idea I have is that there's going to be some kind of food processor, and buttons that you press to dump things into the food processor, and it's just going to blend them together and just make slop, and that's what you're serving. So I'm going to need a button panel, but there shouldn't be as many buttons as there were on the keyboard, because I think I had a 4x4 grid of buttons. We'll check and see. But the idea is that different people will actually, it's going to open into like a cafeteria, I think. So this one will be probably the first one that doesn't have a back panel. It's going to be more like a desk or like you're inside a food truck or something, or behind a line at a cafeteria. But before we get started on that, I'm going to take a quick break and I will be back shortly. Okay, so for this minigame, I think what I'm going to start with is the same thing as before. We'll just grab the back wall. And I am going to just punch a hole through this with another CSG. Probably a box. actually cannot remember what a cafeteria serving line looks like, so this will be interesting. We'll set this to subtraction and load up the door material. I guess I probably need a different material for that now, but we'll worry about that later. Okay, so I think I had this set up so 0, 0 is that player's head height. Just double check that real quick and make sure this looks right. And we'll hide the other minigame. And that's broken again. Okay, cool. Okay. Yeah, okay, that seems about right in terms of size, so we'll stick with that. It does mean that not every player will be able to stand here. I think I might offset it. So in the prototype, I had a menu, or I guess a cookbook that you had to open to see how to make each recipe. And unless I'm going to have that be some kind of item that you pick up, which I don't think I want to do because I want to make sure the players always have the gun in their hands. I think I'm going to have to put it off to the side somewhere. So maybe what I'll do is actually offset this area. And let me close some of this other stuff. I might steal the monitor here. I might steal both monitors. I think I can reuse that for this minigame. So let me bring this over maybe, I don't know, 0.5. Make sure you can still actually interact with it at that offset. Oh, that went the opposite way. Yeah, okay, that's totally fine. In fact, that's actually probably the limit. All right, so then let me go back into the POC and grab a screenshot of, well, really just grab some examples of what the cooking minigame displays. And we'll see if that, come on, load. I don't know what it is about Godot 4, but it really, really hurt the loading times on Windows. Godot 3 did not have such a long loading time whenever you open. Okay, so let's see. We want to, I guess actually I probably just need to run it. That's probably the best bet here. And yeah, it's not running. Okay, let's. Okay. Okay, perfect. Okay, so it is a 4x4 grid. And good, I've actually got it set to pixel scale. So we'll pause execution for a moment. That's interesting. The pause button didn't actually pause it, but the other one did. We'll grab that. So what I'm mostly just trying to figure out right now is how big the order text can be. So what people actually ask you for. So we'll come over here. We'll grab that. Let's see. Is this at 1-to-1 scale? No, this is looks like 50% bigger. Okay. So let me grab a corner of it. And then we will reduce the size. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it was exactly twice. Perfect. All right. Now let me see. So if we grab from here, it looks like I've got 2 pixels at the end. So the text can be 162 characters wide, which I felt like that was enough for any order. I could do like a stock ticker kind of thing too. Actually, this is really helpful. Let me get another screenshot of the actual cooking menu as well. And there we go. Actually, I was gonna say, I think there's a longer recipe in there. All right, so we'll grab that and we'll head back over here to Sprite. And should still be at the same scale, so we'll just grab that. I would just scale the whole image without cropping it, but I've run into some issues with Sprite doing that before. If the image isn't a power or isn't a multiple of 2, I've had some problems with it not scaling correctly when you need to do that. So we'll just cut that over here, and same thing. Perfect. Okay. All right, so it looks like here the longest name is 150. And it is 10 weapons grade depleted uranium. Okay. I'm not really worried about the icons because I'm putting in a limit of 4 per recipe anyways, otherwise it gets too confusing. Okay, so we will quit this and go back to the art study project. Okay. All right, so it's from this side, and I need to add some text. So let me actually come over here. This is why I was wanting to grab the monitor. So I need one to show you how much time you have left. I need one to show you what the order is, one to say how many customers there are. Although I could do that in game if I just have a line of customers. That could be how you determine that. And that's actually probably a better way of doing it than having it in the UI. So I won't worry about that then. So we'll just do a line of customers. There needs to be a trash button, a serve button, and then the 16 buttons for ingredients. And that just means that I need two panels. Okay, so I'm gonna grab this runner monitor, and I am actually going to steal that and bring that over into here, just to see if this works. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to do like those overhead monitors you see in fast food restaurants in the kitchens, and we'll just bring that over to like there. Okay, and then I'm gonna need one for the actual order, which I think I'm gonna put on this screen. So let me make this its own subscene. So we'll call this, oh, I don't know, or you know what? Yeah, I'll just do a new one. Well, no, I'll keep this one. Well, no, actually, here, let's go into Sprite and let's just do this properly. So we will do that, which I think that's either Kenny Mini or Monogram. I'm not sure which font I'm using there. But we'll just do a new project, and we'll make this 196 by 32. I think that's right, isn't it? 196 divided by 32. No, that's not right. 32 times 8. Oh, 32 times 7? No. 192. Okay, here we go. Actually, I should have just done the canvas size, shouldn't I? There we go. Okay, and I am going to grab the same color palette. We'll bring that down. Part of the reason I'm using this LCD is this goes back to the reference material I have. So I looked at a lot of the movies that frankly gave me night terrors as a kid. And something funny I noticed looking at a lot of them is just how many of them have green liquid in them. It's actually kind of funny how many movies from that time period have green liquid, especially like foaming, smoking green liquid. So I definitely want to make sure that I incorporate that in. And the thing that came to mind is those old green LCDs that used to be on every piece of electronics. And since the game is also supposed to be mimicking a PlayStation 1 game, and it really, and all of the, pretty much every reference material here was also from that age, I think it seemed really appropriate. Because I actually can't think of a reason in game why I'd have green liquid anywhere. Well, there's actually maybe one spot, but for the most part, I don't think that would make sense. The only thing is, I do like this style of computer terminal, which is kind of what I'm wanting to use. In fact, I like the whole, just the whole shape of this console, where you have it at, what is that, like a 45 or 30 degree angle, and then you have the flat console out in front of it. The problem is, I think gameplay wise, that isn't really going to make sense, because I've already found that if you look at one of these monitors, or look at a screen in game off, unless you're looking directly at it, it gets really distorted. And that's without a PSX filter being applied. Just the resolution causes that to happen. So I don't think it's practical, because if you have to look down to press one of these switches, then whatever's on the screen is going to look distorted. So I don't know that that's possible, but I do like this style, and this is the aesthetic I'm going for, is this industrial, OSHA would shut this place down in a heartbeat look. And so that's why I'm going with this, the LCD screens for everything, at least for now. I also am thinking of using like CGA, like DOS screens as well, which I might use for the running minigame. Okay, well, the good news is this text is very, very, like shockingly, small on this screen. So if I wanted to do the order here, this would actually be very easy to fit it. Oh wait, no, that wasn't the order. This is the order. Oh wait, well, am I copying the whole? Okay, I am. Yeah, okay, so the actual order, I mean, it's not that much longer, honestly. I could probably make this a lot bigger then, which I probably need to do. So what I'll do is I'm actually just going to scale this whole thing up. First, I'm going to swap the colors on it, though. Oh, interesting. It's actually copied the dither pattern. I'm not going to keep it that color, but we'll just roll with that. And I'm going to grab this. Now, I don't know, and this is something that's bugged me about Sprite. I don't think Sprite has a way to scale a selection by a whole number, because you can drag the corners. Help if I paste that on the right layer. and you can, you know, hold shift to scale with aspect. But I've tried, you know, alt scales from center. Control doesn't seem to do anything that I can tell. So the only way I know to do this is to actually go in, cut it, and thankfully when you cut, Sprite remembers the size. So the only thing I can ever think to do is to go in here, cut it, paste it into a new file, and then scale this, which I'm not a huge fan of doing it that way. Oops, wrong way. Oh, I turned off the lock ratio. I say that doesn't look right. Okay, yeah, see, that's a problem. Okay, well, let's, so I had 2 there. I'll just paste it again this time. And do that. So we'll just say that it needs to be, I guess, 2. And then we'll come in here and just get rid of that. Yeah, that doesn't look quite right. Let me bring that up. That's 5, and that's 2. I guess I could also put the timer on this screen, but we'll see. So we'll go ahead and save this as order. Display. Or order screen. Okay, so then we'll come back into Godot. I think I will still copy that though. And we'll load the new image. Now this one, on the runner monitor, the bezel is 0.35 or 64 by 64. So this theoretically can be a lot smaller. I don't think I'm gonna make it smaller though. I guess I could have just brought it over without upscaling it. Because if I wanted to make it, I would have to come in here and on the sprite, get rid of that. On the sprite would be quite a bit larger. So, what was it again? So 192 divided by 32 is 6. So 6 times 0.35 is 2.1. Keep forgetting I can just do that in the engine. Wait, 2.1? That can't be right. Oh, but I also need to divide that by 2 because that's for the 1.05. So that was almost exactly the right size to begin with anyways. All right. And then this would be 0.35 divided by 2. That doesn't seem right. Okay, let's do this again. So 0.35 divided by 2 times 6. Huh. That is the size. I made this 192, right? Yeah, okay. Okay, I'm not really sure why that's not working, but all right. The bezel's larger than I would expect, but whatever. Are these at the same? You know what? That's a good point. Are these displays at the same resolution? So if we come in here, that sprite is at 0.005. What is this one at? Oh, they are. That is really weird. Okay, well, I'm not gonna question why that's not working. Whatever. So we'll bring that back. Bring that up there, I think. Okay. So that kind of works. So then the 16 buttons for ingredients, how is that going to work? So I guess, well, actually, first thing I should do is I know that that size screen will also work for recipes. So what I can do is just duplicate that, and we'll just bring it over to here. And I'm going to drop that. I'm thinking this is going to be like a chalkboard or something, probably. And if we go back to Sprite real quick, how many orders did I have on the screen at a time? About 3. Okay, so I think 3 is probably too few, to be honest, but I will say too, the other issue is I can't... I think this is going to have to be something else. I don't think it's going to be a screen. I think it's going to be like a chalkboard or something. So let me do a texture that is 192 by 192. And let me see how that goes. So we'll go back to Sprite real quick. And I imagine this would be something like a chalkboard or something like that, but probably with like a button to go to the next page as opposed to a slider like it was in the UI. Now, okay, let me just make the new file first and we'll mess with that. And we'll just make this black and white. I have edit palette on. Okay. So what I will do is come in here and just grab those recipes. And we'll do a new layer and paste them. And we will ditch the background. Need one. I always forget that you need the first one to be transparent. It gets really mad if it's not. I'll just clean up as much of that as I can. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay. Yeah, if we're going to do 192 by 192, that's more than big enough, I think, to fit all of the recipes. In fact, that's definitely big enough that I could use a nicer font. So what I can do here is we'll just ditch this top part. And I will grab all of that and we'll just say, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. About 6. Yeah, that's fine. All right, so we'll do about 6 over Yeah, if that's how large I make this, this would be huge. Let's see, how much space is between one of these? Uh, 14. Okay. So we'll just copy this largest one. I know there's a pixel of black on that text. So we'll do that. And we'll just come up here. And we'll do same thing again. Okay. And then it's going to need some kind of buttons to flip through the pages, which is probably going to need to be near the bottom. So we'll do some text up at the top. I don't know, we'll pick something fun. I should probably switch that to white. Yeah, we'll just do something like that. Let me actually see, out of curiosity, can I type the full title of one of these? So I do need the number because some orders are going to ask what the number is. Oop. Let's maybe make that smaller. What the? Oh, it's 110. Okay, that explains that. Yeah, okay, no, 10 is not going to work. What about 8? Oh, it's massive again. I mean, to be fair, I could also make these a lot shorter. Yeah, okay, that does fit. What is that? Okay, lock that layer. Is that the title? Nope, that's the title. All right, let's bring that up. Lock that one. And this is, yep, okay, we'll delete that. So that's about the longest title you could make, which I think is fine. I don't think realistically I'm gonna have any recipe that's even that long in the final thing. I'm more just curious if I can actually even read that font, because this is a single pixel font at that point. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to need is some way to cycle through the menu. It also needs some kind of border too, so we'll come in here and we'll just make, I don't know, we'll just pick a generic wood color for the moment. And we'll just do this the simplest way possible. I'm not going to worry about adding any shadows or anything else like that at the moment. We're just doing this as simple as I can just to get the idea across. And I'm going to move this up a little bit because I think I'm going to need that space. Okay, and then I'm going to flatten these two layers as well. Alright, now let me see if I can add buttons down here that are actually going to be somewhat clickable. And let me see what would work. We'll just do a box. Yeah, I guess we'll just do a box for now. And I guess we'll just say that there would be a number here. It's like one of however many pages. Use my actual terrible handwriting for this. That'll be great. I'm sure there'll be no accessibility issues whatsoever if I do that. Hmm. 2, 3, 4. Yeah, whatever. Good enough. So we'll do that. Like I said, this really is just to test placement of things. It doesn't need to be particularly good. It doesn't need to look good. It just needs to test that the idea works. I can figure out color schemes and everything else later. We'll say, though, it does look like probably won't have time to get to the art study and actually trying that part today, but okay, so there's our menu. So we'll come back over to here and let me see if I can just put up a sprite. Okay, whatever, good enough. Now it'd help if I flipped it the right way around. Okay, I'm a little bit worried about the buttons. Oh, also, I can tell, again, I need to re-import these, and where's the other one? There it is. And I need to set that to nearest. All right. And back into here, fix that real quick. Yeah, okay, so we're back with this issue again. Part of it has to do with the field of view. The field of view is really problematic with this because right here I can only barely read the text unless I look straight forwards, and the numbers are completely unreadable. Like that I could definitely see somebody thinking that's a 6. Weirdly, the chicken wrap ones are fine though, which is strange. They're fine. Yeah, they're more or less fine, but the one above it isn't. Yeah, that's problematic. So it kind of works. This is another one that might need some more thought. So the problem is I can't just scale up the text again. I will say that font is more readable. So I'm thinking there's a couple options I could go with here. Option one is that I just take the instead of having, well, now I was gonna say I could change it so that the names of the orders are actually just icons and you just have blank equals this, and this. That's not really going to work though, because the whole point is that people are going to ask you for a specific order. You know, they're going to say, give me 3 number 9s, or give me something with chicken or whatever. So this can't just be an icon. It has to be the word. I could do something where if you hover over it, it maybe displays, you know, actually that's a good idea in general. So I could make it so that if you hover over any text in the screen, it actually just pops up a subtitle with what it says. I don't think that should be the only way, like that shouldn't be the only way you have to read the text, but it does occur to me, accessibility is something I've been worried about. I think the LCD screens are probably going to be okay because they're really high contrast, but I could absolutely see somebody having a lot of trouble reading that if they need glasses and that, you know, vision's not perfect, frankly, because this is pretty bad in some so what I could do is look at adding that. That's actually something I'm going to add that to my to-do list. But yeah, the menu's problematic. So I've got room. I could basically double the size of the ingredients. I don't think that would be a problem at all to make the ingredients bigger. In fact, actually, so there's an easy way I can test this. I can just come into here, and I can change the pixel scale back up to be double. Jeez. Okay, so let's see if that's any better for readability. I mean, yeah, that's absolutely more readable. Even the stuff at the top is readable. The stuff at the bottom is not, though, which is interesting. Yeah, that's strange. I can read the one at the top, but not the one at the bottom. Yeah. So it looks to me like if I wanted to double the size of it, I could definitely compact everything down to be a little bit closer together. That would definitely help. But I think that would introduce some other issues. So for one, the names of them can't get double the size, or else I'd have to wrap them. Now I could use really short names like that. But again, I did want some of the joke names. I guess I could just shorten that to like depleted uranium, I guess. That would probably be fine. So, yeah, this might work. So what I may do is experiment with a taller menu instead of doing square. And that might work. The buttons are a problem though. They're way too low down. So I think the lowest the buttons could possibly be is here. And this gets back to the issue again of the menu. I'm thinking honestly what I want to do is maybe just do like a Rolodex kind of thing. So maybe instead of a chalkboard, maybe what I'll do is like a Rolodex. So there'd be like a mechanical carousel of recipe cards. That could work. So then maybe you're only seeing one recipe at a time and there's like 2 buttons for up and down. I kind of like that idea. I think I need to see how that looks. that does seem like it might work a little bit better. But before I go down that path, so at least I've verified that that is a problem. Let me check out the other controls, because I still need to figure out how you actually add ingredients. That's kind of the last important part here. And actually, while I'm at it, let's flip back to A-Sprite real quick, and I'm going to make a timer. So we'll do another 64 by 64. Same palette as... Actually, I probably could have just copied this. But we'll just start from scratch anyways. And what I'm thinking is like a timer clock, like a pie chart that's going to go down. So let's turn on the grid. And let me get a reference line out here. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. There we go. All right. And we'll just keep this simple. We'll just do a three-quarters of the time is left. There we go. And let me do another one on the outside. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Huh. Well, that kind of worked. It is centered, right? Yeah, okay. All right, and okay, that's good enough for now. It doesn't need to be super detailed. So we'll just call this timer screen, I guess. And what I will do is I'll just come into here, copy that, paste it. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, that's interesting. Is that really? Huh. That is unusual. Okay, where am I copying that from? Okay, well, weird. We'll just do editable children then. We'll do this the really hacky way. Okay. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. Okay. So then if we come over to here, let me add a new child node. So we'll do a CSG again. Oh, actually I didn't want a box. I wanted a cylinder. Okay, there we go. And we'll make that, I don't know, 0.2 high, maybe 0.3 and 2 in diameter. Yep. Okay, so then we'll grab that. Put it like right there. In fact, actually, this is one thing I do want to do is make this wall ever so slightly thicker. Now, my thought is that this wouldn't even be metal. This would be like a brick wall or something. Oh, it just occurred to me I have the wrong thing. I really got to get that auto switching working. Yeah, so we got the cylinder. Okay. So yeah, this was my thought, is something like a food processor sort of thing. Just sitting here that you're chucking everything into with like a spout and a tray off to the side. So my guess is that this would have 2 buttons on it. We'll just do a box and we'll make it like 0.1, 0.1, 0.1. And I'm thinking, actually, probably what I'll do is we'll do, I don't know, how big did I make that? 0.4. So we'll do 0.4 there, 0.4 here, and we'll just bring that down. All right, so we'll do that. And then probably what I'll do is, and we'll do the 0.1, 0.1, 0.1, 0.1. We'll bring this forward and we'll just like angle it up 45 degrees. And we'll just have 2 buttons here. And I'll just, for the moment, we'll make one of them red and one of them green or something. I don't know. That's not going to be how this works in the final one, but we'll just roll with it for the moment just to make sure that this is even viewable. Yeah, we'll do green. Okay, so if that is how this is going to work, so then you need some way to add ingredients to it. So if that is the serve button and the trash button, I need some way to add 16 different ingredients and multiple of them. And I think something important is that in the prototype, you could see how many of each ingredient you had added. Especially with some of these recipes, when you start getting multiples of them, knowing how many are in there is actually pretty critical. So you do need some way to see that. Okay, I've got an idea. One thing I could do maybe is have this have tick marks on it. And I could say that it can hold, say, 20 of something. And if each ingredient is a different color, although they're not even here, but if each ingredient is a different color, I could potentially make it so that you could see physically how many there are. Although again, that runs into accessibility issues, so that may not be the smartest idea there. Okay. That's going to require some thought. I hadn't actually thought through how exactly you would see the number of items were in the blender. I'm kind of out of screen real estate here. So this thing is going to take basically everything on this side. I suppose, okay, there is maybe something I can do. I could put like another machine next to it. So first, let me make a new node, and we'll just call this the blender. And we'll grab all that and chuck it into there. And okay, and on this we'll also do that. Okay. Okay, so we grab the blender and we move it sideways some. So I could put another machine right here next to it. And this machine could be to actually add the ingredients. So you would need some way to flip through the ingredient and also some way to see what was in there. Or I could use some of this real estate that's not being used as well. I know I want a fairly unobstructed view right here in the middle. Or actually, I could maybe pull this. Oops. I could grab this and maybe move it over this way. Because then that actually would put the customer in the middle of the screen. That's probably better. And that also means that you're not standing right next to the person over here. Okay, I think that's a good idea. Alright, so then what I can maybe do is actually have a second monitor, maybe, or something like a monitor right here. And we'll turn off the rotation. Maybe make that 15 degrees instead. Put that like right there. So this could maybe be your ingredient list. So I would need to see, can you read the ingredients that are in there? Actually, maybe, you know what? Okay, that gives me an idea. So let's head back to Sprite and let's grab a picture of this. So let's just copy this whole thing right here. No, I needed to go 2 higher on that. That got everything. Looks like it. Okay, so that is a little bit big. So we are currently at 87 by 86. So let me see if I can just bring a lot of this stuff closer together. We'll go about 4 apart. I mean, already that's definitely making a big difference. Okay, so now let's trim. What size are we at now? 87 by 70. Okay. I could try to go up to about 96, but I don't really want to do that if I can avoid it. And these also aren't even the final icons, so I guess this isn't too critical at the moment, but... Okay, so we're at 75 by 70. All right. So we'll take another couple off each layer. I don't think that's going to be enough, but we'll see. Oh wait, 75 by 64. Okay. Might have something now. The big question is going to be, can you actually press these buttons? Oh man, it's still too wide. Okay. Two pixels too wide. Great. That's great. Okay, for the heck of it, we'll just shrink it again. This isn't great. But let's start with that, and I'm just gonna bring this over exactly as it is. So we'll do ingredients. See, I actually wanted a lot of this stuff to be buttons, but the problem with doing buttons is that you have to have them spaced out, and I don't think that would work very well. All right, so we'll go back to Godot, and then we'll grab this screen and we'll change that. All right, and let's see if this works. All right. It kind of works. I think if I brought the screen up a little bit, it would be better. I will say that the two white ones are impossible to read the amounts. I mean, the other option is I could make it so you have to physically drop items in the blender, but I kind of like the industrial dystopian press button and food dispenser blends whatever the heck was in there, like just a tube or something. I do think that could work. I think realistically that could work. If I reduced it down to 12 ingredients, it would definitely work. And then just move it up a little bit, which is not a big deal. And then you just have a little spout out here to serve it. I probably swap the serve and delete buttons, but I think this proves this realistically is possible to make it work that way. So I'm actually not really that worried about this one. It seems doable to make the cooking minigame in 3D. We're about out of time for today, so I don't think I'm going to start on another minigame. I have a list of like 30 of these, but realistically, I don't need to go through them all. The ones I've tested kind of demonstrate three types of minigame, which is what I was trying to get across in the prototype. One that is a physical 3D thing, which is the cooking minigame. One that is a designed to be played by 4 people simultaneously, which is the platforming one. And then one which is a large format screen. And I think this does demonstrate that those types are going to work. I think when I get into some of the minigame design, I can tweak the size of things and whatever to make this, you know, more viewable and whatever. But I'm gonna save that for when I actually start development proper. We're still in pre-production. So what I'll do is, for the next stream, I'm going to look through my list of minigames and see if there's any other types that I need to test. If there aren't any other types, then I am going to just pick one of these minigames, maybe one I haven't done yet, maybe one of these, and we're going to fully model it, fully texture it, try to actually make it look the way it's supposed to look in the game. And I'm probably going to try it in a few different ways, because I've been looking at some reference material. We'll actually switch back to Godot real quick, or A-Sprite. I've been looking at some other games, and they count the art style used varies a lot. When you look at the Resident Evil, or the Resident Evil Silent Hill is very, very gritty, very grungy. Backgrounds are a lot of browns. I'm seeing some greens and yellows, which does kind of fit with what I'm looking at. This is the color palette I'm looking for, and it does fit, but it's, I think, a little too desaturated. Even the blood almost looks more like rust. In fact, actually, maybe that is rust. I'm not even sure. But yeah, it's very desaturated. Now, if you look at Alien Resurrection, which is one of the main games I'm basing a lot of this on in terms of technical feasibility, Alien Resurrection is much, I'm not really sure how to describe it, but the scenes look very, very different from Silent Hill, even though it's still a lot of metal. And then you have what is this, Disruptor, I think. Disruptor is very almost cartoonish in its design, which makes sense. It was made by Insomniac, I believe. So it's got that Ratchet and Clank look to it a little bit, which I'm not necessarily opposed to, but that doesn't really look like what I'm going for. I really do, I think, want to use more, not necessarily photorealistic, but I don't think I want to use purely just painted textures. I want to use stuff that's a little bit grittier. So I'm probably going to lean away from Disruptor. And Alien Resurrection, for as good as it looks, I think a lot of the environments can look very samey, which is one thing I think Silent Hill does better. Metal Gear Solid, I'm not really using it as much. It's a lot of blue, a lot of teal as well. Same thing with some of these others. See, this one is what was it, Codename Tenka, I think. This one is very cartoonish, especially with the weapons. I think I'm going to lean away from that. So we'll see. I've got a bunch of different styles, but I want to try them out. A big part of it isn't just how it's going to look. A big part of it is, are you even going to be able to play the game? Is it going to look okay? Is it going to be possible to read everything you need to read from the environment? So like I said, that will, I think, very certainly be next time. But, you know, I thank everyone for sitting here with me today, and I'm going to sign off for now, and hopefully we'll pick this up again tomorrow. See ya.